So one of the biggest tasks of a fresher is to start with due diligence. Okay, and due diligence means that when an investor or an acquirer is acquiring another company, you need to identify whether the company has been operating in compliance with all applicable laws, and whether the transaction, whether the contract that they propose to enter into for the investment, whether that is consistent to their current status of operation. So you will check their compliance with the Companies Act. You will check whether they are validly constituted, whether they have made required filings. I'm talking about the legal due diligence, I'll clarify here, not the business due diligence, not the financial due diligence, which are not undertaken by lawyers. So the work of a junior lawyer is to actually work on this due diligence. Now the pain here is that a lot of junior lawyers feel that this is boring work. Now definitely it can be templatized, and it is recurring and repetitive work, which tends to give it that nature. But what problem junior lawyers face is that they are not able to comprehend the uniqueness of the transaction which is being undertaken, because of which this occurs to them as repetitive work, but they are unable to actually put in their own creativity and intellect in getting this done. And that can be on many fronts. It can be in identification of what are the aspects to cover when they undertake due diligence. So they might have to review, for example, hundreds of contracts. Now, if a company has 100 offices, you will end up reviewing 100 lease agreements. Now it becomes difficult then to identify what is the information to be recorded. And while doing it, you will feel that why am I just putting in data here? Okay, but it matters on how you plan the work, what details you capture, how you draw inferences, and you might have the assistance of interns, and how you delegate the work to them. That can make a difference in how effective you are. Now, and it is mistakenly believed that only as a junior lawyer you will be doing due diligence, because ultimately the due diligence report goes out signed by the partner. So even the partner is involved in at least reviewing the due diligence, reviewing your observations and findings. So while you have the bulk of the role in the due diligence, your senior associate will be available for guidance, your partner will be involved too. While they won't do the work with you, if you have any doubts, you can always ask them. So reviewing documents is one thing. Okay, so you could review contracts, you could review their filings. Searching on public databases like a MCA search is always done to find out what are the filings. These are not undertaken by company secretaries but by lawyers. So MCA search is done, or if the secretary has taken it, company secretary has undertaken the search, and all the filings are dug out by lawyers to understand that everything is going on fine. The books of the company, or whether the registers are correctly maintained. Then you have to identify all the applicable laws to that sector of the company. And in that, creativity is required. A lot of times this is prepared by junior lawyers together with senior lawyers, senior associates who will be figuring out what are the applicable systems or applicable laws and regulations. And most of the times, unless you've worked on that sector before, every time you do a due diligence on a company, you will have to freshly find out the relevant area of law applicable to that company. That can be pretty exciting, because the way you frame it's called a due diligence requisition list. This is the first thing you do when you first request documents from a company. So the way you frame your due diligence requisition list is going to determine what kind of documents are forwarded to you. And that's going to sort of strategize the way you conduct your due diligence. So that is there. So due diligence is one of the parts. Preparation of the due diligence report, where you draft what is to be done. What are the findings and what are the action points that are required. So findings is an inference. There will be data presentation, then you will infer something from that data, and then you will recommend something on how to rectify any fault or flaw that is there. So all these are very important exercises where you learn how to be creative in your presentation, how to write in a simple way, and how to give doable recommendations, like recommendations which can actually be used by the company to fix the issue, rather than giving unrealistic explanations. And in law school, we are used to studying provisions with, what is the fine, what is the amount of jail I can get. It's not like that here. You got to sort things out. So you have to always look at how this can be fixed. A lot of times law has a compounding procedure, and that needs to be known. So it gets into the operational details. And in law school, we look at only the substantive sections which explain a concept, and then we go through case law to understand the width of the concept. But here this gets down to the details, like which officer do I need to go to, which format do I need to apply in to actually get my offense compounded. Let's say if there's a regulatory offense. So in that way, a due diligence is actually a learning exercise for learning the entire breadth of laws applicable to a business operating in a particular sector. Okay, and you may be involved in meetings with the client and negotiations where the work of a junior lawyer is primarily to take down notes. And while it looks very simple, it is not, because you will realize that there is so much happening over there that you will end up taking notes, and the next day you will not remember what you mean by the notes you took. So unless you are extremely organized and clear and put down everything that you hear there in a structured way, in a way that you'll understand, it won't be easy. So this also, note taking takes some practice, because notes can include information like remind this one to do that, check with your senior associate whether this was done, go online and check whether this filing is there. So there's a whole web of things that you have to actually remember. So these need to be neatly presented for your own self, for you to be able to understand your notes. You may be involved in negotiations where your role will be mostly to observe the negotiation and take down the notes. Okay, and of course, if they allow you to, if you find it appropriate to intervene or suggest things, you can recommend. But arguing is not something that is recommended for a junior associate. You know, if you have a doubt, you're disturbed or something, or you think something should be raised, you should talk to your senior. So now, after this exercise, at the stage of drafting of the transaction documents, once again, you can be involved, where you take up a template and you start drafting. Now, initially, maybe in the first 6 months, you may not draft from scratch. But if you're doing well in the law firm, after 6 months, they will start giving you to prepare the first drafts. And then there's a whole round of iterations that keeps happening. So someone will say they want a certain clause modified. So that work will also be there. And you will find, a lot of times, you'll find yourself confused because there are so many transactions going on. And which point was to be written in which transaction, which SHA you might forget. So that way, it's an interesting exercise to keep track of multiple things that are open at the same time. And these transactions can take time to close. It will not get closed in 1 week or something. It may take a longer period of time. And there will be overlapping transactions. Many transactions fall through, which means that you've done all the due diligence and then you realize the transaction didn't go through. Sometimes in the middle of the due diligence, you may be asked to stop doing the diligence because the transaction fell through. So that is also a side of this, and you will enjoy this kind of work if you are clear about what the overall transaction is about. Now, most of the people don't do that. They want to just get done with their work because the work is boring. Well, the work the firm wants you to do looks boring to you, but if you actually take up the additional responsibility of identifying what this work is about, you will end up learning. While that will not benefit the firm right now, it will improve your performance in the work you're doing right now, and it will enhance your career prospects for the future.